our Vice Chairman if he would tackle that question as he provides his response. I yield now to the gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Butterfield.
Well, let me thank you, Mr. Horsford, and I have a few points that I want to make. Do you have an idea of how much time we have remaining so I can allocate my time?
The gentleman from Nevada has about 26 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Horsford, I think the question that has been raised by the gentleman is a very pertinent point. We've seen over the last 18 to 24 months some very deep cuts in our federal budget. There are some who believe that discretionary spending is too much and that we need to engage in what I call draconian cuts to discretionary spending. And because of that, we've seen discretionary accounts reduced significantly, and it's going to affect what the gentleman has in mind. It's going to affect not only higher education but public education as well. But Mr. Horsford, I want to thank you for allowing me to say a few words here this evening. This is a very appropriate conversation for the Congressional Black Caucus to have. I want to thank you and Mr. Jeffries for coming to the floor each week and lifting up the issues that the Congressional Black Caucus feels are so vitally important for us to debate here in this Congress. Ms. Fudge has left the floor, but I certainly want to thank Marcia Fudge of Ohio, the chair of our caucus, for all that she does. She somehow just stays in perpetual motion, and her staff works so very closely with her. And just want to thank her publicly for all that she does, not only for the people of Ohio, but for us here in the Congress. And what can I say about Barbara Lee? Barbara Lee has been talking about issues ever since I came to this place 9 years ago, and I just want to associate myself with everything that she said and everything that Congresswoman Gwen Moore said just a moment ago. But Mr. Horsford, I don't know much about your state of Nevada, but I can tell you a lot about my state of North Carolina, and I can tell you these are some tough times. These are tough times for poor people. These are tough times for rural communities all across America. I represent one of the poorest districts in the whole country. 1 in 4 people in my district, Mr. Speaker, including 36% of children, live at or below the poverty level. That's a statistic that is worth bearing. I want to repeat it. 36% of the children who live in my congressional district live below the poverty level, and that is unacceptable. The poverty problem in America is actually getting worse. At a time when it should be getting better, it is actually getting worse. There's a huge difference. There's a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. The poverty rate now is the highest that it has been in the last 20 years. And in rural North Carolina, median household incomes have dropped since the year 2000. My district has vivid and unfortunate illustrations of poverty. For example, nearly 1 in 20 homes in some counties do not have a telephone or a kitchen. A lot of my friends in urban communities cannot relate to that, but nearly 1 in 20 homes in some counties do not have a telephone or a kitchen. Many of my constituents are still living without indoor plumbing in the year 2013. The time to invest in our children and in our nation's future is now. We must first undo the cuts from sequestration, and the gentleman who sent us the message a few moments ago may have been referring to sequestration. We must undo the cuts that we are seeing involving sequestration. They are devastating. They are devastating to our communities all across the country. Sequestration has slashed Head Start funding, impacting thousands and thousands of children. It has cut job search assistance for thousands of people, eliminated millions of dollars from the Meals for Low-Income Seniors program. Sequestration cut nutrition funding by 600,000 women and children all across the country. Housing and emergency shelter funding for nearly 100,000 homeless people, and emergency unemployment compensation benefits by nearly 11%. Instead of indiscriminately cutting funding for critical economic development programs, we must invest in programs. And I think, Mr. Horsford, that's what you've been saying each week that we have this conversation. We must invest in programs which give people a hand up toward making it on their own. Important programs such as emergency unemployment insurance, the Workforce Investment Act and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women's, Infants, and Children. We call it the WIC program, that give people the ability to provide for their families. The House version of the Farm Bill, and that's been alluded to by the two previous speakers, the House version of the Farm Bill cuts $20 billion from the SNAP program. That is unthinkable. The House version of the Farm Bill has cut $20 billion from the SNAP program. SNAP is not a government throwaway or handout. SNAP monies go directly to needy families that are in need the most. We are talking about seniors and children, families that need it the most. Republican proposals to slash funding for a program that feeds poor people is simply unacceptable. But there is hope on the horizon for some of our country's poor and uninsured. We can be encouraged that the Affordable Care Act will be fully implemented in just a few months, helping some of the 1.25 million uninsured people in my state qualify for affordable health coverage through the marketplace. I will say, Mr. Horsford, in closing, and again, thank you for giving me this time, I will say in closing that the Congressional Black Caucus is very concerned about poverty. We have constructed a plan to address persistent poverty. We are alarmed that so many communities all across the country have experienced a poverty level that exceeds 20%, and it has been persisting now for more than 30 years. And so our plan in the Congressional Black Caucus is to target federal resources in census tracts that have high levels of unemployment and high levels of poverty. We call it the 10-20-30 plan. We must do it. We have to do it for the sake of America. Thank you, Mr. Horsford. You've been very kind.